Hello everyone, this is Glenda Winkleman and welcome back to Creative Grandma. It's Stitch of the Week time and this week's stitch is number 250 and this is a single crochet waffle weave stitch. I came across this stitch and I just absolutely loved it, had to try it, and I had a member request that I do a video on this stitch. She was having trouble, so I decided to do the video. This is an excellent stitch for just about anything. This would be especially good for dishcloths, baby afghans, sweaters, mats, rugs, just a wonderful stitch. This sample here was made using Red Heart Super Saver stripes. This is the color. It's called Retro Stripes, color number 4971, and this is how it works up. So I'm going to pick this up and show you. If you look closely, I hope this is showing up. It looks like it is. If you look, it's almost 3D-ish and textured. And this is only a single crochet stitch, but you can see down in where it creates holes, like the waffle stitch. Beautiful, beautiful texture. I hope that's showing up. This is the one side, and when you turn it over on the other side, it's a reversible pattern. It's the same on both sides. So very, very wonderful stitch pattern. So this is that sample. And then I made a sample using Karen's Simply Soft paints. And this is the color Funny Boy, 21016. This is what the yarn looks like. Beautiful blues, greens, and whites. I'm just going to pick this up. You can see the patterns when I pick it up, how you can see that texture going down in like a 3D effect. That's the one side. I flip it over and it's the same. So you can see that texture. And then I made the classic, now this is Soft White by Red Heart Super Saver. And I'm trying to see if you can see it. This doesn't show up quite as well on camera, this white one, but this is, you can see the texture. This one doesn't seem to be showing up as much. I'm not sure if you can see it, but I'll move it around a little bit. So I'll just move this one back here until I explain a little more. So for this stitch pattern, it's recommended that whatever yarn you're using, you have to use a bigger hook than what the yarn's recommended suggestion size is. So if you decide to use a lightweight yarn, a number 3 lightweight yarn, you should probably use a size 10J or 6mm hook. If you're using a 4 worsted weight yarn like this design here, then you need to use a size L11 8mm or a 10.5K 6.5mm. So this was made with the L11 8mm hook. So you can just make a small sample, see which one you like best, and then go from there. So this stitch does not have a multiple. You just chain any number of chains until you get to the width of your desired width of whatever you want to make. So if you want to make a 36-inch baby afghan, then you make a chain that's 36 inches wide and you just start the pattern. So very, very easy pattern to do. So I'm going to start, and I'm using a worsted weight yarn. I'm using a size L11 8.8mm hook. I'm going to start with a chain 20. So to get this pattern started, choose your yarn. If you're using a 3 lightweight yarn, then get a size 10J 6mm hook. If you're going to use a worsted weight yarn, then either get a size K 10.5 or a size L crochet hook, L11 8mm hook. And I'll be right back and we'll get this project started. So for my sample today, I'm using Red Heart Super Saver, and I'm using the color Aruba C number 0505. Now I already tied my yarn around my hook. Now you can attach your yarn in whatever method you choose. And I'm going to start with a chain 20. So I already have my yarn on my hook, yarn over the hook, pull it through that loop. That's your first chain. Yarn over the hook, pull it through the loop, that's 2. yarn over the hook, pull it through your loop. That's 3. Continue until you have a total of 20 chains, and I'll be right back to start this pattern. I have my chain 20 ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip the first chain here. The first chain from your hook is here, and we're going to insert our hook, and you're going under just the top thread only. So skip the first chain, insert your hook into just that top thread. Yarn over the hook, pull it through, yarn over the hook, pull it through 2 loops. You just made a single crochet. Insert your hook, and you're going into the top thread only of each chain. Insert under just this top chain, this top thread of the circle, and work a single crochet. Yarn over the hook, pull it through that chain, yarn over the hook, pull it through 2 loops. Come over to your next chain. You're going to insert under that top loop only of that chain, yarn over the hook, pull it through the chain, yarn over the hook, pull it through 2 loops. I'll show you one more time. Find your next chain, which is right here, and you're going under the top thread only of that chain. Insert your hook, yarn over the hook, pull it through that chain, yarn over the hook, and pull it through 2 loops. So all you're going to do is work 1 single crochet in each chain across to the end. So go ahead and work those single crochet across, 1 in each chain, and I will meet you at the end of row 1. I'm over at the end of row 1, and this is what your work should look like. You should have a total of 19 single crochet across your sample swatch. So now we're going to turn our work. We're going to chain 1, and when you're over at the corner of your work, make sure you just tighten your tension a little. Don't get this too loose, or your ends will have a wavy look. So just take your fingers and tighten up that tension a little bit. Chain 1 and turn your work. So for this pattern here, when you look at your stitches, it gets a little confusing. Your row 2 is the most difficult row of this pattern. So once you get through row 2, everything else is a breeze. But what we're doing, let me pull my hook out of here. What we're doing is we're going to be working in these horizontal bars. So if you look at your stitch, you have the top of your stitch here, your front loop, and then you have a horizontal bar with 2 little legs, and then you have a horizontal bar underneath it, and then you have the bottom loop. So what we're doing is we're going down into this. If you count down, it will be the 3rd horizontal bar. So there's 1, 2, and 3. So if you look at your work, you do not want to go into the very bottom loop. If you go in that one, you went in the wrong one. We're going into these loops right here, these horizontal bars. You're going to skip your chain 1. You're going to come down to that first stitch. Right here's your front loop of that first stitch. This is a little one harder to see. Here's your horizontal bar here that's kind of hiding because it's on the edge. You have your 2 little legs here. And this is the horizontal bar right here. This is the hardest bar to find when you start this pattern. So because my hook is too round, I'm going to try to pull this up. And the other thing with this is when you work in this stitch, it tightens this next horizontal bar. So that's why this row is a little difficult. So I'm going to bring my hook down. Now I turn my hook so my hook is pointed up, and I try to grab it this way. But however you do it, you'll get your own method. So I'm going in from the bottom up. I'm going to grab that loop, and then you're going to bring your hook up from the bottom up, and you're going to find that front loop of that first stitch. So make sure you're not going sideways. Come back, match it up to the top, and when you turn your work ever so slightly, this is the front loop. Just look for that, and you're just going to go in that front strand only of that stitch. And then you're just going to work your single crochet. Yarn over the hook, pull it through 2 loops, that top loop and the bottom loop. Pull up on your hook a little bit, yarn over the hook, and pull through 2 loops. You just did your first single crochet. So now you're going to look for that next stitch. Here's your front loop of that next stitch. Here's that next horizontal bar. You're going down to the 3rd horizontal bar. Never work in the bottom loop. You're working in the one above it. So take your hook, count down, find the next stitch. Here it is. Count down 3. 1, 2. Here's your 3rd horizontal bar. Take your hook from the bottom up. Grab that stitch. This is hard to do because I'm watching it through the monitor. Just take your hook, grab it, go from the bottom up through that bar, match it up to the top of that single crochet stitch you're working on, and you got to be very careful you don't go in this bar, because sometimes when you're working your hook wants to go up. Make sure that's down under, and just make sure you're clear up at the top of that stitch. If you have to turn your work and look, do so, and just go under that front loop of that stitch, and then you work your single crochet. Yarn over the hook, you're going to bring it through the top loop and the bottom loop of those bars. Pull up on your hook a little bit, yarn over the hook, and pull through 2 loops. That's all there is to this stitch, but once we get row 3 done, it's such a breeze. So let's just take it slow. Find your next stitch. I hope you're seeing this okay. Here's your next stitch. If you just concentrate on the sideways bars, your horizontal bars, they go sideways. Here's 1, 2, 3. This is your 3rd one. Go down, take that hook, go from the bottom up, grab that bar, and then you're going to come up and you're going to go into that front loop of that same stitch. Yarn over the hook, pull it through those 2 horizontal bars, pull up a little, yarn over the hook, and pull it through 2 loops. You're going to find your next stitch. I'm repeating this several times because, like I said, row 2 is the most difficult row because you're trying to go into these stitches down here, and once you get a couple rows done, I'll show you what I mean of how easy it is to do. But this is the concept of the stitch. Find your next stitch, count down to that 3rd horizontal bar, 1, 2, 3, insert your hook in that horizontal bar, pull your hook up, go up to the top of that same stitch into the front loop only, yarn over the hook, pull it through those 2 horizontal bars, pull up just slightly, yarn over the hook, and pull it through 2 loops. I'm going to show you one more time. Find your next stitch, count down to the 3rd horizontal bar, 1, 2, 3, and again just look for those horizontal bars right here. Find that horizontal bar, go from the bottom up into that stitch, pull your hook up, go up to the top of the stitch and go into the front loop only, yarn over the hook, pull it through 2 of the horizontal bars, pull up just a little, yarn over the hook, and pull it through 2 loops. So go ahead and work across. I will meet you at the last stitch and we'll finish this row. I'm over at my last stitch of row 2, and when you're trying to decide where the end of your row is, because it's a little confusing because you have a big hook and then some of these are kind of loose stitches, just turn your work slightly. Here's our last stitch. Here's that front loop, just follow it down. There's 1, there's 2, and this is your last 3rd horizontal bar we're going to go into at the end of the row. So just hook that bar, bring your hook up, bring it up, go into that front loop of that stitch. Again, if you turn your work, you can see the 2 stitches. You're going in the front loop, and then yarn over the hook, pull through those 2 horizontal bars, pull up a little, yarn over the hook, and pull through 2 loops. You just made your last single crochet of the row. Now, if you have a pointed hook, instead of taking your hook and going up like I have to because my end is too flat and boxy, if you have a point on this hook, you can actually take your hook and go right up through those stitches this way. But I have to go this way because my hook is just too boxy. You can't get that big flat square. It just doesn't want to go up under there, right? So for row 3, you're going to tighten your tension on your yarn and you're going to chain 1. We're going to turn our work. Now row 3 is a little easier. You're going to skip this beginning chain 1 space, and we're going to go down to this bottom loop clear at the bottom. So when you look at your work, we're going to be working in this very bottom horizontal bar. So come down, you're going to find that first bottom loop. You can see them right on the bottom. Go into that bottom loop, come up, find that beginning stitch right here, and make sure you do not go in this one. You need to make sure when you turn your work slightly, you're going into this first loop. So come up, go underneath that front loop, and then work your single crochet. Yarn over the hook, pull it through those 2 horizontal bars, pull up a little, yarn over the hook, and pull through the 2 loops. You just made your single crochet. You're going to come down, find your next stitch. You're going to come over, find that next single crochet stitch. You're going to drop down to that next bottom loop, and when you make this, it pulls that up a little bit, so it just kind of getting it ready for you. Just go right into that loop, come up, go into that front loop of that next single crochet, yarn over the hook, pull it through those 2 horizontal bars, pull up just a little, yarn over the hook, and pull through the 2 loops. Find your next single crochet. You'll see that your bar is already lifting up. Just go underneath that bar at the bottom, come up, go into that front loop of that next single crochet, and work your single crochet. Yarn over the hook, pull it through those 2 horizontal bars, pull up just a little, yarn over the hook, and pull through 2 loops. Again, we're going in these bottom horizontal bars. Going to find your next stitch, which is here, follow it down. Here's your next horizontal bar. You don't have to count because you know that you're going into this bottom, the very bottom bar. Insert your hook from the bottom, go up to the top, insert it into that front loop only, yarn over the hook, pull it through those 2 bars, pull up just slightly, yarn over the hook, and pull through 2 loops. I'll show you one more time. Find your next single crochet stitch, go down to that bottom bar, insert your hook, come up to the top of that front loop only, and work your single crochet. Yarn over the hook, pull it through those 2 bars, pull up just slightly, yarn over the hook, and pull through 2 loops. And that's all there is to it. Go ahead and finish across. I'll meet you at the end of row 3. I'm over to the last 2 stitches of row 3, and because my stitches are getting a little looser, I can start using my hook because I don't have to try to catch that. I can just go ahead this way. So if this is easier for you, you're just going to go into that bottom bar, come up into that front loop, and work your single crochet. And then when you get to the last stitch, this bottom bar is going to be raised So make sure you look for the horizontal bar, because every time you do these stitches it lifts this bar up. So by the time you get to the end, it's right up there at the top. It's not down here any longer. So you're just going to grab that last bar and you're going to go into the front loop of that last stitch and work your single crochet. And this is what your piece should look like. So now we're going to do row 4, and starting with row 4, that's the row you're going to repeat. I'm going to chain 1 and turn, tighten that tension up, chain 1 and turn your work. So from this point forward, you're going to already know where to put your hook because your bar's sticking out. So if you look at your work, you can kind of see how it's sticking out there. So every time you work a row from this point forward, your bar is going to already be there. You're going to be able to see it. So for row 4, it's the same. We chained 1, and this is our first stitch. We're going to go down to the bottom. You're going to go underneath the vertical bar. So if you count down, it's 1, 2, 3, but because it's sticking out, you really don't have to count any longer. You just look for that bar, go down, insert your hook into the bar. You're going to come up into the front loop of that stitch, yarn over the hook, pull it through those 2 loops, pull up just a little bit, yarn over the hook, and pull through 2 loops. And you're just going to continue in this manner for this pattern. You're going to come down, and like I said, you don't have to count 1, 2, 3. You know that this is the bar, the horizontal bar we're going to be working in. It's right there, just ready, no counting. Just go into that bar from bottom to top, up through that front loop of that next single crochet, and work your single crochet. Find your next stitch, go down to that horizontal bar, insert your hook from the bottom, go to the top through that front loop of that next stitch, and work a single crochet. Find your next stitch, drop down to that next horizontal bar, which again, sometimes they start pulling up when you're working the stitches, but it's right there ready for you. Grab that bar from the bottom to the top, go up through that front loop of that stitch and work your single crochet. Find your next stitch, drop down to that horizontal bar, go up through the top of that front loop from bottom to top and work a single crochet. And we're just going to repeat that across the row. Just a very simple but very lovely stitch. So go ahead and repeat. Find your next stitch, drop down to that horizontal bar, go from the bottom to the top, and go up through that front loop of that stitch and work your single crochet. Repeat that across. I will meet you at the end of row 4. I'm over at the last stitch of row 4, and again, that bar is way up here because it keeps pulling it up by the time you get to the end. So you'll know the stitch because it's right even with your other stitches. So just go in that last bar from the bottom to the top, up through that front loop, and work your single crochet. So that was our repeat row. This is what your work should look like. You can start seeing that 3-dimensional texture. So I'm going to chain 1, tighten up that tension, chain 1, and turn your work. When you turn your work, you're going to see that every time you turn your work, your bars are going to be right there for you to work that stitch. So every time you work a row, your bars are going to be in place for the next row, which makes it so simple. This is just such a simple design. Now I'll show you one more time how to start the row. You're going to skip this beginning chain 1. You're going to find that first stitch and you're going to follow it 3 horizontal bars below. 1, 2, 3, which is the bar that's already kind of sticking out. You're going to go from the bottom to the top and up through that front loop of that first single crochet stitch, and you're going to work your single crochet. You're going to find your next stitch. You're going to drop down to that horizontal bar, 1, 2, 3. You're going to grab that stitch from the bottom and go to the top through the front loop of that next single crochet and work your single crochet. You're going to find your next stitch, drop down 1, 2, 3 to that horizontal bar that's sticking out. You can see it right here. Just grab that bar from the bottom to the top, come up through that front loop and work your single crochet. And you're just going to keep repeating row 4. If you need help, click back on the video, and when you turn your work over, you can see it's getting your next horizontal bar ready for you. So when you get this row done and turn it, see how your horizontal bars are already in place. No need to count any longer. You're just going to go in those bars. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the single crochet weave stitch. It's a wonderful stitch. I absolutely love it. I just think there's so many possibilities, and the more I look at this, I just think this would make an absolutely wonderful rug, nice and thick and textured, and like I said, you can see that woven pattern when you look. It's like a 3D type feel. So thank you everyone for spending a little time with me today and working on the stitch of the week with me. I really love doing the stitch of the week. Again, this stitch pattern is stitch number 250. It's called the single crochet waffle weave stitch, and there should be a link right in my description box on the video. You can click that and it'll take you right to the stitch of the week page. So thank you everybody, and please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Happy crocheting!